Alive.
I should pay attention now, huh?
Yeah, I guess so. Hey, what's new in your background? Anything new?
I don't know. There's a plant.
I think the plant was there before. It's still alive. That's good.
Yeah. No, Jocelyn's taking care of it.
Well, yeah. You got what's that square next to the plant? That framed thing. Certificate of awesomeness or something?
This thing?
Yeah.
You've seen that before. I'm a certified advanced master gardener.
Oh, right. Okay.
You can sort of say hi to Jocelyn for me.
Jocelyn, BearPaw says hi!
Well, I guess that's proof.
Jocelyn says hi back.
All right.
All right. Welcome, everybody. That was BearPaw in the background. Exciting show last week and hopefully another one this week. We're still on the same topic of community. And so...
when you get older, are you going to sound like your dad? You going to have that voice?
If I keep drinking whiskey and smoking cigarettes, yeah.
What's wrong with my voice?
For those that don't know, BearPaw was at Wheaton Farms building a bunch of stuff, and it was super cool. They built a balcony that went into the workshop for the for courses, future courses. He helped, yes, he had help. And he also built the Willow Wonka, the latest Willow feeder.
So the Willow Wonka is in a state now where it's active and in use. It's all good. It's fair. You could call it complete. I think it would be good to add a sink in there still, and there's plans for that. But everything about it, the primary functions are all going. The couch balcony has a rail now, and so people can go up there and come back down, and everything fine. But there's a couple of little details that still need to be kind of ironed out. So like when you go up the stairs, there's a big chunk of wood kind of blocking the way to walk towards the couches.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Yeah, BearPaw, nice job, man. And of course, all the other guys that helped out, all the boots from boot camp. That was great. There's Fred.
Hey, Fred.
Hey,
Sorry I'm late.
No problem, man.
it's Fred.
We get background commentary from Paul from BearPaw the whole episode. Okay, awesome. Yeah, and the Willow Wonka's got it's got a really cool rabbit on it now.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's pretty beautiful.
And I imagine there's pictures all over Permies, right? For all this, if the people want to see it.
For both projects, there are pictures. We could use some more pictures of both, I think, especially now that the couch balcony is done. So, weren't you taking a bunch of pictures, Josiah, when you were here?
Yeah, I took a bunch of pictures. I haven't posted them anywhere.
That's kind of the thing, is you think like, oh man, how long could it take to just go take a couple of pictures and put them online?
Yeah.
And how long could it take to do this task and that task and this other task and all these other tasks that we got to do? I mean, they all take just a couple of minutes.
Oh my God, we started using this project management software for all of our tasks, everybody on staff, and it's fucking insane. There's so many tasks. It's ridiculous.
And then there's tasks where it takes about the same amount of time to do the task as it takes to document the task.
Yeah. Thank God for you can set them as reoccurring, so you just check it off, and next week it just shows up again. Okay. Anyway, all right. So Paul, or everybody, first off, you can head to tv.permethos.com and watch any of the previous episodes, and we're also on iTunes and Google Play if you want to watch or listen to the podcast thing while you're driving around. So check that out. Permaculture Smackdown is all you got to search for on those. And also, you get all the show notes on tv.permethos.com. And pretty soon, we're going to start, as one of the new tasks, we have our marketing guy he's going to start updating all the Permies forums with all the latest episodes as well. So Excited about that. Now, of course, if you're watching this, there is a live audience. To be on the live audience, you need to be either a customer of Permethos or a Patreon of Paul Wheaton's. And then you can join in live, ask us questions, leave comments, and we'll talk about whatever you end up asking questions about or commenting on. Michael Croft says, afternoon all. So afternoon, Michael. All right. Hey, Paul, would you mind just kind of sharing quickly that text file so we see what we're going to be talking about today?
Please stand by.
All right.
Can you see it?
Yeah.
All right.
So last week we talked about humongous, the disturbing video to watch if you feel like watching a disturbing video. And we talked a lot about community and like starting a community and the member side of the community, what they have to deal with. So what are we talking about this week?
All right. So chronologically, I'm gonna talk about how I'm on Mount Spokane. So this is 2001, 2002, 2003, 2004, and it's 2005 when I realized I start doing the math, and I think I talked about this 2 episodes back.
Yeah, you want to be where Sepp Holter's at and beyond, and to do that, you can't do it alone.
And so then I left that property. I immediately went and visited a whole bunch of different intentional communities.
Yeah.
And I bought the existing book on intentional community, and I think it was like the next year that the other intentional community book came out, and that's with Diana Leaf Christian.
Great book.
So, while I was visiting Lost Valley, an intentional community near Eugene, Oregon, I met Diana Leaf Christian, and but just I visited with her for like an hour or so, and then I took a workshop that she taught for a whole weekend at our eco village up on Vancouver Island, British Columbia. Now, the big thing is, and I think this is and I may have mentioned this 2 episodes ago, but it's kind of like, all right, you want to be in a community where you can get your stuff done. And if there's anybody that's really awful who impedes your work and they're just nasty and they're destructive, you want to be able to kick their nasty ass out. At the same time, it's kind of like, what if the rest of the group decides that I'm the guy that should be kicked out? It's like I'm trying to get my work done, and there's an enormous amount of work to do, and I can't just start over every 2 years. So I need a place where I can be there for decades to do the things that I want to do. So that's the dilemma, really, with most consensus-based systems. It's kind of like I need to be able to understand how to be a permanent resident. And then at the same time, when I'm visiting these intentional communities, I did exit interviews. I interviewed the people that were leaving each of the communities. And I remember, like, for example, at Lost Valley, I didn't, my understanding is there was nobody that was currently living there that had been there longer than 2 years at the time that I was visiting. And so this one gal had been there almost 2 years, and she was leaving. And so, well, why? Why are you leaving? And one thing is that she's like, she came for the obvious reasons, all the things we talked about in the last episode. And but it was the downsides ended up outweighing the upsides. And she says, you're going to meetings like, I mean, not just every week, but like 2 or 3 times a week. You have to go to meetings to work through all the issues and the problems and talk to all these people about and try and make decisions and figure shit out. And it's like, it just ends up consuming your life. And so she had a full-time job, and then she had a certain amount of spare time, and she wanted to do wonderful, beautiful things with her life, including wonderful, beautiful things within community. But she says she just found that she was spending this enormous amount of time in mandatory meetings for the whole community, or she'd find herself on a board, and she found herself like on some sort of group that was part, like, to figure something out, and she didn't know this topic, but she had to like learn about it, and she didn't want to learn about it. She didn't care about this topic. So the other thing is that Lost Valley has a communication style. It's something that's like, you know, because for conflict resolution, you learn a good communication style, and theirs was called Heart of Now. And she said that basically Heart of Now was used as a weapon. And so you would be trying to talk to somebody about a topic, and then they would say, oh, because you didn't use the Heart of Now technique, you lose, I win, it's over.
What's the Heart of Now technique? I don't know. What is that?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, basically, there's probably 50 different schools of thought on like what makes for good communication without conflict resolution.
Okay.
So the one that they taught at the time at Lost Valley was called Heart of Now, and so I think, you know, I mean the goal is good, to have respectful communication. You want to be able to when issues come up, you want there to not be all the crazies that there can sometimes be. You want things to be smooth. Right? This is probably great. That's what I want too. Oh, there. See, it still exists. Looks like they part of it is the holy hands. But anyway, this I didn't know anything about it, but this woman was adamant that people used Heart of Now as a weapon. You talk about nonviolent communication. This is an interesting thing. Is when I was in 2005 taking that workshop from Diana Leaf Christian, one of the other students taught nonviolent communication, and Diana and this other woman started having a nonviolent communication exchange that sounded very violent, and it was a very hostile exchange, but it was apparently using the nonviolent communication technique. So I don't know. It seems like most of these areas of conflict resolution, of good communication techniques, are generally underscored with whoever are the masters of it have a powerful need to dominate the conversation and basically say, if you are not using my particular style of nonviolent communication or good communication, then I can't talk to you. You know, we can't have a basis for communication until you take my $1,500 course in my communication style. It seems like I've heard a lot of that happening. I'm sure it's not entirely true, but I think that there's enough truth to it to be concerned about it. All right, so the moral of the story is that in 2005, I got the idea that the way to improve my overall velocity was through community, and I think that's a good, healthy path. I suppose somebody somewhere should have billions of dollars and say, I'm going to have 20,000 acres. I'm going to hire 50 people to, you know, live on that land and do what I say.
Like farm hands.
Well, I guess it would be, but you'd have to have a business model so that way you could justify paying these people.
Well, you look at it like what Joel Salatin's doing. Very similar.
Sure. Yeah. In fact, I really like that thing where he calls them fiefdoms.
Yeah.
I think fiefdoms is the wrong word, but I think basically you've got overlaid business models on the same land, and you'll have 20 different people with 20 different, or maybe even 50 or 60 different business models, all living symbiotically on the same piece of land. I think that's the best way to go. So rather than having like one person owning the land and then having 50 employees or 20 employees, then you can have one person who owns the land, and there are, let's say, 20 people with 40 different business models, exercising those business models on that land. And then the one person who owns the land makes sure that they synchronize, that they are choreographed.
And then he's combining that, so he has that program. But to get into that program, you first have to go through another program, and that is much like your book program, where they are going there and they're interning for a year's period and working with all these people doing their businesses and working with Joel's property and all the things he's got going on.
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, that's the route that I'm pursuing at this time.
Yeah.
I don't have big dollars, and it's kind of like, and really it's a very simple thing. I love the idea of having 20 to 40 people who live here, and we have a way of things working smoothly, and then each person has their own story about how they get stuff to work out. But I like the idea that most of the people that are here are going to have some kind of business model of their own, you know. And I'd like to think that some of them will be like bringing in a couple $100,000 a year and living high on the hog. And but I really like the idea that there are some people that bring in maybe $2,000 a year, and that's plenty for them.
I would love it if that was enough. Like if you had this system in place where $2,000 a year was enough to get on by, just fine.
So, looking at my list, let's see.
Well, before we move on to this, I want to talk about a couple of things we covered that you just talked about. One is that this when I just looked at that Heart of Now website, a lot of people that are going into community have that in mind. There's a picture of these people all holding hands, and it's like a utopian vision of community. And a lot of people are entering community or looking to join a community because of that idea that there's like this utopian, great, peaceful world out there a little world that you can be a part of, and everything's great once you're in. And I think most people get a big slap in the face when they realize that it takes a lot to get there, and if it is even possible to ever get there. And so when people are joining these communities, they're running into, wait, there's conflict. Why is there conflict in a utopia?
Well, I think there's a couple of different routes here. One is that I think a lot of people get the idea of like, I'm going to go live in the country. I want to move out of the big brown cloud of the city. And what most of them do is it's kind of like, they're going to, rather than buy a place in the city and live in the city, they're going to buy a place out in the country, but they're going to have a commute time of like 40 minutes each way or something. And so they're just outside of the brown cloud. And they're like, I'm going to raise chickens and cows and grow a big market garden and keep my job. And so they have to, the house in the country, a bank won't touch it. So fortunately, in the country, people are used to that, and they do what's called owner financing. And so then it's 1/3 down, and then like whatever is the going rate for a mortgage at that time, and the owner carries it. So what happens is people like get a $300,000 property. It might be 40 acres, and it has a barn and a house on it already, and so they have to put down $100,000. And now they've got a mortgage, but now they're pretty well tapped out, and so they're like working at their job, and they're taking all of their money and they're routing it into projects on the property, and they run themselves ragged. And for the first 5 months or so, it's a dream come true, and then it starts to take its toll.
Yep.
And then
And you see the same thing with people that do the same thing. They go out to the country, they buy a piece of property, but instead of the commute thing, they're saying, I'm going to do it all at the property. Like, I'm not even going to transition. I'm just giving up and going for it. I've saved up this amount of money where I have a little bit going for me to last. So I got 6 months before I can start. I need to start making a profit in. I got 6 months to build it up. And you quickly find out that's not enough, for one. And then for two, you don't have a lot of this thinking is that you're going to do it by yourself. And they don't realize how much work and resources it takes to do it, where that's why the community thing becomes appealing, is that in the community you are able to share these resources and share this work. You don't have to provide it all for yourself by yourself as an independent person.
Okay, I want to talk about that, but let me finish the thing I was just doing.
Okay.
And because I got a place where I'm going with that. So we've got somebody who's got a job in town still, and for the first 5 months they're loving it. Then it starts to take its toll, and I've seen it many, many, many times. They hit about the 2-year mark, and they just walk away from the property. So when I was living on Mount Spokane, I knew a guy. He had a piece of property that had 80 acres, and he sold it, with owner financing, and it was almost exactly $300,000. So he got $100,000, and he ended up selling that same piece of property 5 times.
Oh, because of failed payments?
The first 4 people, after a couple of years, they walked.
Right.
They just, they couldn't make the payments, and so it went back to the farmer, the original guy. So he was making a pretty handsome living just selling that same property over and over again. But the moral of the story is that people get stars in their eyes and they go out into the country, and it's going to be all these things, and it turns into everything. And then the other thing is so many people get this idea that they're going to go and take produce to the farmer's market, or they're going
I lost you, or you lost me. There it goes.
So many people get this idea that they're going to take produce to the farmer's market, or they're going to do a CSA, and that's how they're going to make a living. And then they discover that it's like, wow, the amount of money you get for that is so tiny, and it's so much work. Especially when you're just getting your system started, it's an enormous amount of work. So, all right, now back to your story where they saved up. They got to the point where they could buy land outright. That's really rare. The idea that somebody could come up with $300,000, and now maybe they lived in the city for a while, they worked hard, and they built up equity in their property, and then they sold it, and then they could move farther away, and by moving farther away from the city, then their costs are dramatically reduced. There's a lot of people that are like that live in some big city, and the property has huge value. They can sell their house for $1.5 million, and they've got maybe $800,000 in equity. So then they walk away with $800,000, and then they go someplace and they drop it on the farm for $500,000, and they've got $300,000 in the bank.
Yeah.
Well, then they start improving things. They improve their property, and before you know it, 2 years has passed, and they don't have $300,000 in the bank anymore.
Yeah, especially if they haven't adjusted their spending habits first.
Right.
Like if they're moving out there from the city, they're probably used to being able to buy the Starbucks coffee every day and buying computers and shit off the internet whenever they want it and all of that. So they haven't adjusted their spending habits as well. So the money goes even quicker. But even if they had, we'll say they had adjusted their spending habits. Yeah, it still takes a lot of money to feed yourself, your family, and build all these structures and infrastructure and the gardening and all of that. It takes a lot of time and money.
Plus, in either of these scenarios, even in the first scenario, you had to have $100,000. And now, other scenarios are you could go and try and buy a small piece of land that's maybe 10 acres that is in a less than optimal spot, and it's raw land. There's nothing there. There's no water, and it has issues. But maybe you can buy that for 40 grand. Maybe even less than 40 grand. Maybe you can get it for 30 grand or something like that. And then you go and you build a tent, and then you do the whole mortgage-free thing, where you start off by building a shitty house, and then while you live in the shitty house for the first year or two, you build a better house. And then the first thing you live in, you turn into an animal shelter or storage shed or who knows what. So that's a possible path.
I would also say that these people are going to have much more success or much more chance of success doing it on their own like this if they have set up residual incomes or they have online jobs where they're making money online.
Okay, all right. Residual income stream. I can't seem to get. I mean, I have people who come to me and ask me, and it's like I can't seem to get people to even start down that path. It's like oil and water. They just.
You mean you can't find people that have set up these residual income streams that want to be in the community?
No, it's more like, because I'm with you. I think setting up residual income streams is the smart play.
Yeah.
And I mean, we could talk about the agile work here in a moment, but residual income streams, I mean, to me, that's the slam dunk, because it's like if you're dreaming about moving out to the country, then it's like, here's what you do is like 2 or 3 times a week, you do a little bit of work that feeds into some kind of residual income stream.
Yeah.
And then after 2 years of that, you might find that you have like $2,000 a month coming in, and you don't do any other work. And so it's kind of like, well, then you can kind of head out into the boonies, and if you get yourself a situation where you can just barely afford it, that's fine, because next month you got another $2,000 coming in to fund whatever it is you're going to try and do. I mean, I think that's a smart thing, and it seems like a lot of people are kind of like of the mindset of like, yeah, I'm going to do that, and it's like they I don't know if they can't, or there's something in their psyche that makes it so that they won't.
Well, I think it's that people that think that way, that think about residual income streams, getting that going, are more of the entrepreneur mindset, and that's something that they would have been doing either way anyway. It's not like I want to go join a community or I want to go do this, so I'm going to set up residual incomes. It's just the mindset of this is the best way to do things, is to create residual income streams. And then they decide, okay, now I have the freedom and ability to go, maybe I want to go join a community, or maybe I want to go homestead by myself. And so I think it's a different mindset of, I mean, maybe as a community manager, one of the prerequisites he said is that you must have at least one residual income stream, or you must have this amount of money of a residual income stream coming in before you can join this community. And so, and to do that, I think it would be only wise of us as the managers of this community to teach people about residual income streams, how to do it, or different ways of doing it, or at least pointing them in the right direction and saying, I highly recommend, or I insist actually, that before you join this community, you have these you have a residual income stream in place. And if you don't already have that, or you're not already of that mindset of having residual incomes, that's the mindset we're looking for. So go get that mindset, and here are some ways that maybe you could do that. Let's see, we got a comment
from Julia.
Maybe best to require people to have this set up before they show up. Yeah,
I think that's what Josiah is saying, and it's kind of like I think that sort of stuff, for the most part, is none of my fucking business. But at the same time, it's like I've had some people come here to live here, and I tried to stay out of that, and then they made it my issue. Like like every 2 weeks, they would come to me and tell me how desperately broke they are. And then in time, they start making it my fault. And it's like, how is it my fault? You know, I'm not responsible for feeding you. And, you know, I know what luxury, I see the luxuries that you purchase. I didn't make those decisions. It has nothing to do with me.
Well, like Julie is saying right now, you can't turn a regular person into an entrepreneur. I think you can switch people's mindsets to seek out entrepreneurship, especially in America. I think America has a lot more of the entrepreneurship than other countries, or a lot. Yeah, I would say that. However, the pool definitely does decrease of the amount of people that you can get into a community. If you make a prerequisite that a person is an entrepreneur, the pool of people, potential people to join that community shrinks a great deal, because there aren't a whole lot of entrepreneurs, true entrepreneurs. There are a lot more in the United States than in other countries, I would say. But that it is still, it's like, what would you say? I'm guessing entrepreneurs, true entrepreneurs, that's probably 1 in 100 people, at least, or at most. I think there's a lot more. More?
Yeah, I would guess that a good 20 to 30% of people out there are able to travel that path of working for themselves. Whereas I kind of feel like more than half the population is kind of like, they really got to have a job. They got to work for somebody who tells them what to do, and you know, you have to be here by 8:59 a.m. in the morning, or you're fired. You get 2 weeks of vacation every year, and you're gonna talk to HR and fill out a form to request days, and you can't just like not show up one day and say I didn't feel like working. Most people need that very strict. And
that's kind of losing. There you go. First of all, I think people that go to public education, first of all, it's training for that. It's training to have a job. It's not training to be an entrepreneur. They don't really teach entrepreneurship in public school systems. And also, it's comfortable for people. It's a comfort level of just, when you're off work, and after that's your time. And then you got to go back to work, and you got to work. But you're going to be off work at this time, and then you get to go do whatever you want. That's kind of comforting to some people.
Well, okay, I mentioned the thing about people coming out of the country with a mortgage, and then, and I imagine some people can pull it off, but I think it's rare that a person's going to be able to pull it off. And then you mentioned the idea of somebody buying property outright, and then you moved it further still, and we started talking about residual income streams, and you talked about agile work, something where you can like work from anywhere. You can go anywhere in the world and do your work. Some people would require the internet, and some people don't require the internet. And I think that's another option. Of course, when you get out and you're doing your permaculture and homesteading thing, and you've got an agile job, it might not leave a lot of time to do the things that you want to do. And so you're still back in that whole boat of like, you work 40 hours a week on your agile work, and then after hours you work on homesteading and you work towards the transition. But it's like if you've got a 30-year mortgage, it's kind of like you've got to keep working for 30 years, and you don't really get to have all that beauty. Now, the thing I want to do is I want to be able to provide the permaculture and homesteading dream to people on the cheap. And my first thought is like, I'd like to bring in the 20 best minds in permaculture and have them come live here and each demonstrate, their vision in seed and soil. And of course, they're not going to come.
Right, because they're entrepreneurs doing their own thing.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, all right. To get the thing that I want, how do I do this? And I think the thing to do is you got to grow your own. And so, all right, who's got a mindset that's like mine that wants to come and live here? And we can get those people to live here for 20, 30, 40 years. And, you know, like Fred, maybe. And then get this thing that I'm shooting for, community, plus the future of permaculture. You know, the whole thing about cancer stuff, and so much more. So I think that there's people that are anxious, that are craving this kind of scenario. I think. Well,
I would say that people that are craving that type of scenario are rarer than people that aren't or haven't even ever thought about it. And so once again, it's like limiting the pool of who's already in this mindset. That's a smaller pool than everybody else. And so a way to increase that small pool is teaching, and that's the route of teaching people reasons why you would want this mindset and how it can be done, which is also very difficult to do, is to change someone's mindset or to have them do a lot more thinking about themselves, their lives, and their surroundings than the typical person does.
Agreed.
So Julia says the boot program addresses this issue, right? If the people come and work, they're fed. And I'm not sure exactly what she's talking about, because if people come for the boot camp and then they finish it, they get their deep roots plot, then we stop feeding them.
Yeah, she was talking about the residual income issue of someone having a residual income before they can join the community, or that idea of making that a requirement. And Julie was saying that the boot program addresses this.
I would like to think that after a year and a half of being in the boot camp program or more, that people will value the boot camp program and possibly be a bit more industrious in the world of permaculture and homesteading. Whereas I think some people show up and they think that they're going to build their own thing, and they're going to build their own gardens, and they're going to build and they're going to raise animals and all this stuff. They're going to do all the things, and then they get here and they learn that it's
a fuckload of work.
It's harder than they thought, that the payback is smaller than they thought, and I think that a person who wishes to have epic coin in the world of permaculture, they can earn a professional wage, but it's not phone it in and get a professional wage. You're going to have to do professional level work to get a professional wage.
Well, and this also comes back to the comfort level thing. So a person coming and realizing how hard it is comparing it to that comfort level of having a 9-to-5 job or whatever, where it's just they know they work this much, they'll get this much money, and then the rest of the time is theirs, and they can relax. Because it's a different mindset that you have to have, because you can get there, you can get to the point where you're working 2 hours a day or maybe 5 hours a week, and you're living comfortably, but it's going to take a lot of work and a lot of design to get there. And so that's the mindset change.
You know, I've seen a lot of with some of the folks that we've got. I've seen a lot of people where, in order to save money, they're willing to not just turn down the thermostat, because of course it's like you got to go get that wood if you're going to heat your place. And you could build a rocket mass heater, but that's work. What's easier is to buy a conventional wood stove and stick it in, and then suddenly what I see people doing is something along the lines of like, I don't mind the cold so much.
Or they're like doing what you had done shows on, is like how to put a light bulb on yourself and stay warm instead of heating your whole fucking house. Yeah, exactly. There's
warm and comfortable. I was warm and comfortable the whole time I did that experiment.
Right.
And now here, we did an experiment this year, and when we kept it warm and comfortable in here, I think When it got down to 66, we would build a fire, and then when it got to 70, we would let the fire go out. But I've just seen some people. How warm do you think you keep it at Cooper Cabin in the wintertime?
I don't know. And there's no, it's very comfortable. I mean, you come in from outside, and it's.
I mean, you can see outside. I mean, there's actually animals that come and go through the walls because Cooper Cabin's not done. It's not done. But we have a rocket mass heater in there, and a rocket mass heater is an amazing thing. But
yeah, 2 days ago, I saw a squirrel, and I watched where it went out, and there was, a size hole through the wall in this back closet, and then another one right next to it that's like, it's like, how did I not see this before when I was in that room? But like, the squirrel was just like, yeah, this is how I get in.
This is my door.
Of course, a lot of heat would have been going through there in the winter too.
Yeah.
But rocket mass, I mean, you're saved by a rocket mass heater. You got a rocket mass heater in there.
Yeah.
And we've had a lot of people too, where it's kind of like when they experience the rocket mass heater in the Tipi, then they're kind of like, I'm not gonna even get a house because it's very comfortable and it's so much easier than building a house. It's like rocket mass heater, and then just feed it. Of course, then there's people that are lazier than that, and they're like, I'm gonna live in a teepee with a conventional wood stove, and it's like when the fire goes out, you get real cold.
So last week, Fred, did you watch last week's episode by chance?
No, I wasn't. I didn't have dinner.
What, you don't have time? All right, so last week we talked about the idea of, let's say we're going to build this intentional community, and we have all these plots. What if one way or another, and we talked about different ways, but eventually what if we have plots that are already set up at the basic levels? There's a garden in place, there's a structure, a housing structure in place, and then when someone comes to the community or buys into the community, they get to choose which plot they want, and each plot has the basic necessities there already built for them so that they can either build upon those or start their own thing, and they don't have to worry about that initial major headache of a setup, which could deter a lot of people. And in that, okay, now I've got this blank piece of land, I got to build a garden, build a structure, it just becomes overwhelming. But what if those were already in place? So I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. And also with the teepee thing, maybe that would be a great structure. Every plot gets a teepee with the rocket mass heater, and that's your structure until you figure something else out.
What you're describing sounds kind of like a community that I heard about in Wisconsin. One of my friends moved to, and him and his partner and their kids got a house like in the community, and they had a yard, but it was the whole eco village or whatever was owned collectively, but someone had come and maybe had built that house, or maybe they'd bought a neighborhood. I wasn't really sure how it formed, but
right.
He was to move into a house and have his private space within this community.
So then he had to buy the house.
I mean, he paid rent. It was like he was paying
his dues into the community.
Yeah.
Right. And then the housing is provided for him. I think what I'm talking about is more like, this is going to be yours. You're buying this plot. Now, maybe there's monthly dues or yearly dues to be in the community, but this is going to be your plot or as close to yours as it could be, instead of the possibility of just getting moved around or whatever's best for the community. It's more like what's best for you. You're getting this plot, and essentially this is your 1 acre or 5 acres, and unless you're kicked the fuck out, but other than that, it's yours.
I like the idea of somebody comes in and that's their South and South fiefdom. That's the thing that they do. They're going to build structures and sell those structures.
Okay.
I like the idea of supporting that on my project.
Yeah, I mean, as the founder or whatever of the community, it seems like that would be very expensive to get every, however many initial structures or gardens you wanted set up. It's like, well, you need people to build the gardens, right? You need people to build the houses, but where people is what you're lacking. Like,
I did come up with an interesting idea, I thought, on solving that in last week's episode, in that you have a transition period where you're transitioning, you're getting everybody on these 1 acre plots, and you're really finding out who is dedicated and going to make it. And those people are the ones that are building up on the property. And then you find the ones that aren't. But the ones that are making it, and you're pretty sure they're going to make it, they're strong, they're building all this cool shit on their property, their 1 acre, you offer them a bigger piece, a 5 acre plot somewhere else, in exchange for this 1 acre plot that they've built up. And then that 1 acre plot is available to sell to someone coming in where they would already have a setup established. That was an idea of mine. But yeah, anyway, that kind of, I think that's kind of a cool idea I'd like to play around with more in starting a community. That's really all about starting the community, is finding those. But it involves, like, I don't know in Paul's situation if that's even a possibility, because really to come up or to do that, you're going to have to set it up from the beginning to be that way. And of course, there's a lot of risk in that you don't know if it's going to work or not. And so, who's going to do this? Who's going to be the lab rat of a community, run a community that's a lab rat to do these different kinds of ideas and projects? Now, luckily, there are a lot of communities out there that have failed, and they were essentially lab rats for us to learn upon and make better systems of. And I think even now, Paul, you're doing a lot of stuff that other people haven't done, and you have made your decisions on what you're going to do based on what has worked or not worked with other communities, but you're still going to run into issues because what you're doing is unique and new and not proven. And so that helps people like me who want to start communities.
Watch how I face plant and say, well, no, don't do that one. Yeah. Thanks, Josiah. Yeah. All right. Hey, getting back to my list, I want to talk about, I want to continue from 2005. And so I talked about how I visited dozens of intentional communities. I took 2 workshops in 2005 about community, how to do community. One from Diana Leaf Christian and one from a gal named Rowena from New Zealand. I think she was from New Zealand. I'm pretty sure she was from New Zealand. I read a lot of books, including Diana Leaf Christian's a book, which was called Creating a Life Together, which sounds like a book for people that are trying to have babies, but it's actually different. But there's a lot of other books about intentional community, but there's a lot of stuff on the internet about intentional community. There's a lot of misinformation. And the biggest thing I felt was that the way that seemed reasonable is that if you're going to go in and buy, if you're going to go onto $1 million property and you're going to go into it and split it 10 ways with 10 different people, it seems like no one person should be the person in charge. And so then, in which case, it has to be at the time, the consensus model was the model. And I think at this point in time, most people who are starting on this road, they still believe the consensus model is the model. At the same time, it just seemed like every instance that I saw was just riddled with problems. The
meetings that you were talking about earlier. The fucking meetings are ridiculous.
So in 2005, I joined an intentional community that was forming, and it was really easy. It was one where you just simply had to pay rent. And they were going to do all this permaculture stuff, and they had several acres, and they had a creek running through the property, and the stuff that they said all sounded fine to me. And then it just seemed like the guy that was kind of in charge, he wasn't even there half the time, and I don't know, it just never took off. So it had a 10-bedroom house, and I was just renting one of the rooms in the 10-bedroom house, and it just seemed like things never really moved. So I then decided to start another intentional community. So I rented a 6-bedroom house and rented out rooms. And at one point in time, everybody in that structure had completed a PDC.
Now, hold on. For clarification, So the last one where you rented from, your thinking was, this is great, but the guy isn't there enough, and that's the problem. So I'm going to start my own where I am there.
It was okay. I actually, everything was smooth. I mean, it was a beautiful place. The 10-bedroom place, it was a beautiful place. We had a beautiful cob oven. The guy that was in charge, I was there when he was building a greenhouse, and I pointed out that he's building it in the winter shade, and he said, "No, I'm not." And when winter came, I pointed out to him, like, "Okay, it's noon right now. You'll notice that there's no sun hitting the greenhouse at all, and it's a clear day. It's noon on a clear day." And he just, "Why do you always have to be that way?" You mean right?
Factual.
But anyway, I kind of felt like, you know, I could, but everything there was just fine, but it's like nothing was happening. And I thought I was joining something where there was going to be a lot happening. Granted, it's a new community, but I thought there'd be a lot happening. And at the time I was working full time. And so it was difficult for me to be able to do a lot, but it's like anything that I did, I kind of was just doing on my own.
Mm-hmm.
So, and there was hardly ever anybody else around. So it was a little odd. Anyway, then I started the one in Greenlake, which is the 6-bedroom place. And we did do a lot of stuff. We made a lot of gardens. It seems like we were constantly gardening. There was a lot of cool stuff. And on this particular one, everything was really quite smooth. We shared meals, breakfast and dinner 7 days a week. And then we had a gal move in, and she was a militant vegan. I mean, we had vegans that were there, and everything was wonderful and lovely. And the militant vegan moved in, and we just, you know, basically she said, "This is the way things are going to be now." And it's like, well, to change things, we go through consensus. And she said, "We don't need to have a meeting for consensus. I'm a consensus expert. So what we're going to do is you're going to go and tell everybody what I said, and we're going to have consensus. Because everybody's going to do what I said." And this is, you know, she's an expert in consensus. So we didn't, and it led to conflict. And then she said something like, well, if we don't reach consensus in 20 minutes on this, then we'll go by democratic vote. And what she meant to say was that for her position, she had discovered by going around and talking to people that she had a majority vote for what she wanted to do. And I said, well, that's not consensus. That's democracy.
And that's not even democracy.
Okay, fair enough. The key is that community was destroyed.
Yeah.
That one person just basically destroyed the community. And I think this is a great example of how one person can easily destroy a lovely, lovely thing.
Now, and in that community, everybody was working. They had their regular jobs they were going to, right?
Right. This was an in-town thing, and you know, but everybody was bonkers about gardening. Everybody was bonkers about permaculture, and so, but this, you know, we basically the issue is we just divided the food bill even, and then she came up with a strategy to divide the food bill a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you sit down and you run the math, it's like everybody who eats her way, everybody that's vegan, ends up getting subsidized by the people who don't eat vegan. So yeah, it was smart for her. And anyway, setting that aside, it was a demonstration of the fragility of community. But by this time, I was on a board for an intentional community incubator. And so I was helping a bunch of different communities get started, as well as go through the meeting process. And one of the most fascinating things, because I eventually left the Greenlake place and went to a place with a central leader. But one of the things with the intentional community incubator is that people would be talking about what's going to be their processes for different things and how they're all going to get along and stuff. And I always use the example of the kitchen. It's like nearly all of the problems for intentional community when you're sharing meals and sharing a kitchen is in the kitchen. 90% of the conflict comes from the kitchen. And so then when you're sitting in a group of people and they're all talking about their future together, they insist that there won't be any problems. So I would throw out the example of like, if you were to say cook a meal for your community. So you cooked a meal for yourself and 9 other people. So that's 9 other plates of food for others. Now, over time, how many plates of food do you think that you'll get back? And universally, these people who were forming an intentional community would say 9 or more, because people are generous. And so it's like, I don't think so, but I was universally 100% shot down, and that it will always be 9 or more. So I went to this next community, and I provided like breakfast and dinner for 3 months to an average of like 5 or 6 people. So I kept track, and I provided 540 plates of food. And I'm doing this because I had the money at the time, because my residual income streams were working out pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
I had the money, and on top of that, I just needed to prove that I was right about this.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so I did get plates of food back. Do you know how many plates of food I got back?
100.
Okay, say 100. You already know the answer to this.
I know it's not 100. I don't remember the exact number. It was like 3 or something.
2. I got 2.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Put out. I provided 540 plates of food. And that's 540 plates of food to people other than me.
Oh, right. So I guess the number more logically would be like, you would expect to get back like 90, or not even that, 60 or something. And everybody else would get a plate. I mean, ultimately, what should happen is everybody, if you're contributing these 500 plates, everybody else should be contributing 500 plates.
Now, you would think that for 3 months, I supplied, if I remember correctly, I supplied dinner 5 nights a week. I supplied dinner 4 nights a week, and I supplied breakfast 5 mornings per week. And so then on the weekends, you would think people would make dinner and include me, or breakfast and include me, or maybe lunch and include me. And then when I stopped, you would think that by the end of this period, I am everybody's best friend in the world. They love me the most. And on top of that, that they're going to just feed me. I mean, I'm going to get years of food now. So you would think. Instead, there was an enormous amount of resentment. In fact, one guy at one point started talking about, because there's this thing at the time, and it's still in play today, where Monsanto is trying to basically own all food. And if you own all food, then they can raise the price at grocery stores by a factor of 10. I mean, what are you going to do about it? And, of course, Monsanto has also put a lot of work into trying to make it so that people can't just grow a garden, that would be counted as taxable income. And eventually, it could even be deemed illegal because, you know, did you know that food that Josiah grew, he grew it in dirt. Did you see it? It's all dirty. People can't be eating that.
You don't own the dirt. Also, you don't own the dirt. You don't own the water. You don't own the dirt. What the fuck are you doing?
All right. So anyway, so this one guy got this whole bent about how he who controls all the food controls the world. So because of that, he wanted to openly protest the meals that I was providing, although he still ate. So anyway, and these guys are all permaculture people too. They're all permaculture people. And so after, when I stopped it, one of the guys, and I didn't stop it by saying, I hate you guys, fuck you, nothing like that. It's just like, oh, I just did it for a while, and now I'm not doing it. And I waited to see how many meals I would get back. One person, and so I noticed that I would make food and I would put it in the fridge to save it for later. And then I'd go back later and it'd be gone.
Huh.
And I was missing a lot of food. And so it turns out, it took me a couple of weeks, but I finally caught the guy red-handed digging in my food and eating it. And so I said, that's not okay. That's fine. He says, well, I thought everybody was still... No, I sent out like 9 emails, first stating that, no, I'm not feeding everybody. It was just, for a while, and I'm done now. And then I sent out emails to everybody here, including you, saying, somebody's been stealing my food. Please don't steal my food. And it's like, I says, yeah, well, and it's like, it's total horseshit. The guy is just lying. And basically what he found out was, what he was doing was he wasn't buying any of his own food. All of his food was just whatever he was stealing from me. Because before I was just doing 9 meals per week. And if you think about it, 3 meals a day, 7 days a week, that's 21 meals. I'm not even providing half the meals in a week. But he was getting all of his caloric needs met by stealing my food. So more than 9 meals a week's worth. And that was another thing too, is at the meals, this particular guy, I kept catching him stealing the food to save for later. Like he'd take some of the food and like stick it in his coat pocket and try and, zip out the door. All right, the moral of the story is that this was a lesson in community. And that just because you're generous doesn't mean other people will be generous too. Yep. In fact, it'll be the opposite. It's an element to build resentment. And when I caught the guy stealing my food, and I said that is not okay, other people in the community thought I was too harsh on the guy. And
He's
so
stealing. Why are we allowing someone in here that's stealing?
Yeah, if he's stealing food, what's he stealing of yours? Maybe he's going to steal your food now that he's not stealing my food. Or maybe he's going to steal your stuff and sell it for money to go buy food. Because the guy's like got this weird thing where he just decided to not buy food. Like he's going to live his life this way or something. The moral of the story is that I was on a board helping to incubate intentional communities and get them started. I think that this group did a lot of really fascinating work in the world of intentional community. Very excited about it. And at the place that I was at where I fed all the people, it was a central leader, but then the central leader thing didn't work out. It turned out that guy, the way that you could tell that guy was lying is his lips were moving. He just lied about everything, always. And finally, I just I couldn't do my permaculture projects that I was told I could do. And so I had to get out. I had to leave.
All right. I think we should mark it off on the notes where we're at, and because we're at an hour, and we only are doing the show 1 hour a week. So stay tuned for next week's show. This recording will be available on tv.permethos.com. Podcast is available on your iTunes, your Google Play, and also on our YouTube channel. And Fred, any last comments? Because we haven't heard enough from you. That the closing stage is yours. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, since the last time what's the last time I was on the Smackdown with you guys, I completed my work trade for a deep roots plot here at Artweed Labs. So I've got a couple acres up there that are mine.
Nice. Cool. Congratulations, man.
Yeah.
So that was a year and a half?
It was about a year and a half.
Well, if you take out the bits where he wasn't here, I think that, the boot camp program, people can do that too. Like they come for 3 or 4 months and they're gonna be gone for a month. And then they hang out for 3 months and they're gone for 3 months. And then when it all adds up. So that's
yeah.
You were coming and going.
And so now you're in this great unique position with all the power, right? You have your own piece of land. You were the farm manager, and now will you continue that? And Paul will concede to your demands, or will you say, I'm done, I've done my work, and I'm good to go?
I think I'll probably still do quite a bit of work for Paul, but we'll see how it goes, I guess, yeah.
All right. Cool. Well, maybe we'll find out next week what you've decided. All right, guys. Thank you very much. Thank you guys for showing up, and we'll see you next week.
All right.
Bye-bye.